Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, YouTubers. My name is Hobby Boy, aka Redwood, aka Jester. I got a few different names, but this is going to be the start of, I guess, a few or more than a few, a bunch of videos that I'm going to do. I figured I might as well get into the game too, since I love this hobby. So let's talk chuck gliders. And what I have here is a ReadyMadeRc chuck glider. It's just a regular old, I guess, child's toy, you can call it. It's made out of EPP foam, so it's durable. And they take a beating. So this is probably my sixth or seventh conversion on one of these. And I figured I'd better do a video on it. And basically, what I'm going to go through is the plane itself, and then all of the components I put into it, the work I'm going to do to it to make it into a 4-channel RC remote-controlled airplane. So let's get started. All right, so like I said, the first thing we got here is a ReadyMadeRc chuck glider, and I've already started doing some modifications to it. All right, so the first modification I did, it's not really a mod. I wouldn't call it a modification. I basically just cut the top off over the wing saddle, the top of the wing saddle. I cut it off and I glued it to the wing. Okay, so now when you pull it off and you go inside, I've already carved out a little box, a little opening inside for the electronics to go into. I had some leftover plywood pieces, so I kind of cut out some slots and glued them in there, and it stiffened the back up really well. So I plan to run some more towards the front, towards the nose of the fuse, as well as reinforcing the bottom, that bottom line right there. I'm going to cut along that line, and I'm going to glue in a carbon fiber rod to stiffen up the fuse. All right. It's lightweight and it's durable, but you want stiffness when you're flying. You don't want a loose fuse. You don't want a wobbly fuse. You want stiffness. Okay. So moving on. Like I said, I glued this to the top of the wing. Right. I basically used some Gorilla Glue White, which worked great. And then here on the bottom, I kind of dug it out a little bit. Right? You can see that. I dug it out. So I'm going to put a small 2-gram servo in there, a small 2-gram standard rotary servo in there to control the ailerons. All right. And then inside the fuse here, back here in this area, will more than likely be the receiver with the motor and ESC going back into that bay there. And as you can see, I already have a couple of linear servos that I had laying around. These are AGF RC 1.5 gram servos. They're good servos. And if you know anything about AGF RC, they make a little bit of everything right now. And they make really good servos. They make all the way down to micro servos, 1.5 gram servos, all the way up to the big brushless, big money servos for turbine and big scale airplanes. So they're a well-known company and they've been around. So they make good servos. So that's why I bought these 2 linear servos. They're lightweight and I put them in the tail. And all I did was cut out these little rectangular boxes. And then I just sat them in there. They're not glued in yet. They're just sat in there. Like I said, I just started this. So you can make it, if you try one of these, you can make it clean or you can make it dirty. And what I mean by dirty is leave all of the wires hanging out on the outside like that. You know, leave everything hanging out on the outside. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to make it look nice and neat, which is what I usually do. I usually try to make all my models look nice and neat. So I'm going to bury those wires. As you can see, like I did this one right here, it's just not long enough to make it into the pocket. So I'm either going to have to cut the wire, solder an extension, or make an extension so it can reach inside the fuse here. So I'm going to have to do that for both of them. All right. And the tail, I haven't done anything to the tail yet, right? So what I'm planning on doing with the tail is I'm going to use an I-beam, top and bottom, carbon fiber small, a spar, 1 millimeter, just to stiffen up the tail. And then I'm going to cut along this line on both sides. And I'm going to join both sides with a piece of wire in the middle, so one servo will actuate both sides of this elevator. All right, so that's the beauty of these conversions is you got to figure out how to make things work. All right, and as you can see here, I had to cut this tail down. This isn't the usual ReadyMadeRc glider that they usually put out. This one had a second tail cut out. All right, so this is the first one, and it had one up here that I cut the whole tail off, the whole vertical fin off, and then I cut the slot out, flattened it out, made sure it was flat, and then glued it back onto the fuselage here at the rear. All right, so it wasn't their usual chuck glider. Usually their chuck gliders are just a single tail mount down here and not up here. But it was a small, no big problem. It was easy enough to fix, easy enough to repair, to cut it out, change it up, and make it work the way it is now. And then under here, the canopy was the hardest thing to get off because they use this rubberized glue, and it is really hard to get off. So I used a little bit of alcohol inside to loosen up the rubberized glue, and it popped right off. So in here in the top, you see you got these two ball bearings right here. And basically they add nose weight for this plane to glide properly. If you were to take them out and try to throw it, like right now, especially because I added the weight to the tail, it wouldn't fly right. It'd be tail heavy. But these two actual ball bearing balls in the canopy here are helping it to balance where it needs to be balanced. So until I get a little bit further forward in this conversion, I'm going to leave those two balls inside the canopy just so I can test and make sure that I got CG and everything correct. All right. You can look online inside Facebook. There's a group called Little Conversions, and if you don't know anything about those, the little gliders, they're sold by a German supermarket chain called Little, and they're decent sized gliders. They're big and they're fun to convert. I've converted a couple of them. There's also some other ones that you can get that are pretty big. You can buy them off of Amazon for about $20, which ain't bad. Your biggest purchase, if you decide to do these conversions or if you decide to tackle this, your biggest purchase is going to be your TX, your transmitter, the thing that's actually going to control the airplane while it's flying. That's going to be your biggest purchase. Those, you can get a Radio Master Pocket right now for like $100, maybe a little bit cheaper, but it's a nice small radio. It's a nice small game controller style radio, which they're making now, which is like a thing. You got the Radio Master Zorro, which is a nice radio. I believe it's 12 channels. It's a game style, and it's really nice. It's big. It's not super big, but it's big, and it's in the shape of a Xbox controller. And I like it. I actually have a Radio Master T16S, which is an even bigger radio. But I tried the Zorro out, and I really like the Zorro. It's small, it's lightweight. You can pop it in your backpack or whatever. It's basically a go anywhere type of radio. But those are just different choices you got for radios out there. You know, you can buy whatever your heart's desire. You can go cheap, you can go expensive. That's up to you. So, as I was saying, I'm going to use a probably a 1104 or 12 millimeter multi-rotor or drone motor on this. They're pretty small and lightweight, so it shouldn't add too much weight. I mean, the whole goal here really is to keep this airplane around 250 grams with a battery inside. 250 grams. Not that this would interfere with the remote ID thing that's going on with the FAA. You know, I just like building these, and I like trying to keep the weight down as much as possible so they glide well and they fly awesome. You can actually see them thermaling. You can actually see them bouncing through thermals. So these planes, even though it's a little chuck glider, they're very well made. And if you do it right, it'll be the perfect plane and it'll last you a long time. Like I said, it's EPP, so the foam is very, very durable, and you won't have an issue with anything breaking right out the gate. I mean, unless you know, slam it into the ground at like 30, 40 miles an hour, then I think you might have some problems, some breakage somewhere. But I mean, even if it does break, this stuff goes back together very easily. Like I said, I used Gorilla Glue white. All right, and you can find that at Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, just about anywhere. You can even find it in the drugstore, Walgreens, CVS. You know, they sell the Gorilla Glue, and then they sell the Gorilla Glue CA, which is another good one. I use that a lot, the Gorilla Glue CA. Um, so there's a lot of different glues that you can use on these. If you're going to use some of the aforementioned glues, I suggest that you do some light sanding to sand the mold wax off of the plane, off of the fuse and the wing. As you can see, it's really shiny. And it's shiny because it still has the mold release wax on it. So once you wipe it down with some alcohol, it'll dull out and you'll know that the wax is gone. But you want to do that before you start gluing stuff together. Sand, if you got some alcohol, put it on a rag, wipe it down where you're planning on gluing things together. Because if you don't, the glue will not stick. It will break. It'll come right off. All right. So be aware of that you need to sand, and then you need to wipe it down with glue. And just to give you an idea, as you can see here, this is sanded down. I sanded that down. Not that I'm going to glue it. I needed to sand it so it would sit in this bed better, inside the wing saddle better. But here on the top, I sanded it and glued it down, and it's in there. It's tight. So it's not going anywhere. And that's what you want to do. You want to glue, you want to sand, wipe it down with alcohol, and then glue your parts together for a better hold. All right? So underneath this canopy, I'm going to have to dig this out. I'm going to have to cut all of this out, dig it out, make it look like that. And it's not a hard process. It's a little process, but I want to use this because it holds the canopy on very well. So I got to figure out a way to keep this part. And then I got to figure out a way to keep it and not have it in the way where it's going to interfere with me sliding a battery in and out of the fuselage. So I got some tinkering to do. And like I said, this is going to be a 3-part build series. I'm not going to do it all in one shot and just lay it out there. I'm going to do some work, and then I'm going to do a video and explain to you guys exactly what I did to get the results that I got. All right. So what you want to do if you do decide to do one of these is you want to take your time. Don't rush, because there's 100 different ways that you can build these and make it work. I actually did a build where I split the whole fuselage in half, in two pieces. And all I did was took a box cutter knife and I followed that center line right there. And I just cut all the way down until it was in two halves. And it's a lot easier that way because you can hog the foam out a lot better, and you can make little pockets and little channels and stuff for all your gear. And then all you got to do is glue everything back together, glue the two halves back together, and you're in business. So if you do buy one of these and you do slice the fuselage in half all the way down the middle, like that, what you want to do, if you do it that way and you slice it down the middle, what you want to do is you want to make sure you make a channel on the inside. If you're planning on putting your servos in the rear back here, you want to have a way for the wires to reach into your radio bay. So you want to cut a channel out in both halves of the foam before you glue it back together, so you can get the servo lead, so you can get these servo leads inside the fuselage for a cleaner look. That's how you achieve a cleaner look. Here, what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut and force the wire inside, and then just glue the cut back together. So the wire is permanently in there. I'm not going to use tape or anything like that to hold it together. So I'm going to slice along here. I'm going to insert the wire into here inside the radio bay. And where I cut at, I'm just going to put some Gorilla Glue CA back in there and glue it back together. And I'm going to do the same thing up here. All right. Just spread it apart. Run my wires inside. Put some glue. Hold the pieces together until they're dry. Voila. My servo wires are now ran inside. I have a cleaner look to the whole body. It looks like it may have been bought from the store versus, having done it yourself. And that's the difference between building it yourself, building clean, and building dirty. All right. So to me, wires hanging on the outside, battery not on the inside, I call that a dirty build. It works. It'll still fly. It'll still work. It's just dirty. It's not clean. It doesn't look like it came out of the store or came out of a box. So that's my whole goal when I convert one of these is I want a clean look. I want somebody to ask me, hey, where did you get that from? So I can see the look on their face when I tell them, oh, I built this. That look, when you say you built it, that you did this and you did that, that look of amazement is what gets me, and it gives me a lot of joy to see that look on people's face when I show them and when I tell them what I did and they actually see it fly. The look of amazement is unbelievable, and it's worth the flight itself. The whole reward is to make this thing fly, right? And the look on people's face when they see it and you explain to them what you did, that look is priceless. And that's why I love this hobby, because anybody can get into it. Anybody can do it. Anybody with any real type of skill level and patience can do this. This is not that hard at all. Okay? So don't get intimidated. Like I said, if you're going to try it, don't intimidate yourself. Don't be like, oh, I can't do this. Because you can. Anybody can. All right? And as another reinforcement, I may or may not, and let me show you what I mean by tough foam. See? You can barely bend it. You can barely bend this stuff. It's tough. It's tough foam. So what I may do is I may use some 1.5 millimeter lam on the wing, which will act like a spar. It will stiffen this wing up. It won't allow it to flex. and it'll act like a spar. I mean, this is a lightweight plane, so I don't need much to stiffen things up. But that's just one idea. I mean, I could just take a razor knife, cut a straight line here across the wing, and embed a carbon fiber rod inside, and then glue it inside, and that will stiffen the wing up greatly. It'll add weight, but it'll stiffen the wing up greatly. Even using the lam without the spar and just lamming the wing will add weight. So you got to consider all of that. And like I said, I'm trying to keep this thing in at 250 grams. So that's my goal with this little baby, is to keep it at the 250 gram mark with a battery inside. All right. And I'm going to be running a 2S. I'm not running 3S. It's not a speed chip. I'm going to run 2S. And the only reason why I'm going to run the 2S battery is because I want to run at least a 6-inch prop. So the small motors, if you run them on 2S, you can run a larger prop. Most small motors in the 11 and 12 millimeter range, you're only supposed to run like a 3-inch prop on them at 3S, at 3S. But if you run it at 2S, you can put a larger prop on it and get away with it and still have a low amp draw. All right, and that's the whole key. Keep the weight down, have good flight performance, get good flight time. Average flight time you want above 5 minutes for something like this. And if I use a 2-cell 400 milliamp and I get over 5 minutes of flight time, then that's a big plus. Because now you figure if I go up from a 400 to a 600 or 800 milliamp battery, I'll get even more flight time. And that's the whole key, is to enjoy this thing. Get it to fly as long as you possibly can and have some fun with it. And that's what I plan on doing. I plan on having a whole lot of fun with this thing during this summer. And if my channel becomes popular, I might even do a giveaway conversion. Convert another one of these little guys or one of the bigger ones and give it away. Because why not? Like I said, they're inexpensive. It's fun to convert them. And if you take your time and do it right, you can have it flight ready in 3 days, 4 days tops. So that's my plan. And like I said, AGFRC. That's the servo manufacturers for these. AGFRC. Look them up online. They have tons of servos. I use Gorilla Glue White, Gorilla Glue CA. All right. We'll talk more about receiver, speed controller, and motor and battery once I progress a little bit further on this conversion, which will probably be in the next video. So the next video, I should have everything bought, and I'm going to work on getting it in before I produce the video. That way I can explain to you guys what I did, what parts I used, how I did it, and, give you guys kind of an idea of what you need to do in order to make your conversion happen. So that'll be video number 2. So this is part 1. Video number 2 will be the power system. And then video number 3, which will be the finale, will be the flight. I'm going to take this out and I'm going to fly it. And I'm going to show you guys how well it flies. Okay? So stay tuned. Like I said, this is going to be a must-watch 3-part series. If you want to build one of these, convert one of these chuck gliders into a 4-channel, 3-channel RC airplane, this is going to be a must-watch. All right? Thanks for tuning in, guys. Stay safe.